Hey you guys, this is Professor Vitt. I'm going to walk you through part of the mock exam. So this is part 2 of 2. The first part's going to come out after the second part, where I'll cover all that stuff. I'm going to do it on the whiteboard because it'll be a little bit easier than typing it all in. So we're going to cover the mock exam here for logic. I'm going to look at fallacies first, the true and false, and then the multiple choice. Okay, I'm not going to cover every single one, but I'll cover the highlights, and I'll make sure that if you've been studying and you've memorized those fallacies, that when you take that work with this video, you should do fine for the final. You'll be in a good position. As always, if you have any questions, email me, tweet me, and I'll do everything I can to answer your question. Just a quick reminder, the final for this class is going to be on Wednesday, and it will be on... Let me just get my calendar out here. Calendar. There we go. And I believe it's going to be the 14th, but let me just make sure. Yes, so the final for this class will be on December the 14th. Okay, so December the 14th is our final day. All right, fallacies. So this is the true and false section. And usually with true and false, because they're so obvious, the thing that you have to look out for the most is just making a silly mistake. So let's look at number 1. Here the title says, an example of appeal to tradition would be. So in other words, I'm kind of testing your definition here. Accepting a position solely on the basis of sound reasoning and external confirmation. Well, that's not the definition of appeal to tradition, and so that would be a false statement. So keep that in mind. If somebody's making a decision on the basis of sound reasoning and external confirmation, they're probably not committing a fallacy, right? That alone should tell you as much. But when you recall the definition of appeal to tradition, forcing a user or an interlocutor to, or just forcing a person to accept a position on the basis of past practice, that would be a good definition for appeal to tradition. And remember, that doesn't help us at all. Appeal to tradition doesn't tell us whether or not something's true. It just tells us that we've been doing it for a while. Okay, so 2 is just a fun, silly little question that I have here. Euphemism. Now let's cover this one real quick because I test somewhat heavily on euphemism and dysephemism in this exam. A euphemism is making a conclusion or position more acceptable by using terms that are more pleasant or at least less objectionable. And that's correct. And here's how you remember it. Remember this you, that means good. So euphemism, it's like same Greek root from the term Eucharist, I believe, and also euthanasia. And it just kind of means good or better, right, in our sort of use of that term. So EU means it's better. Euphemism, you're speaking euphemistically, right? Dysephemism is the opposite of that. Okay. 4, a fallacy is a kind of perfection in reasoning. Remember, that's just testing to see whether or not you know what a fallacy is, right? So I can ask that question many, many different ways. I can ask it like 4, or I can ask it like 11, right? Where I say fallacies are the wrong way to think. Now, let me just give you a little hint. Number 11 here is quite a tough question. Fallacies are the wrong way to think. Well, that would normally be true, and if you were ignoring the rest of it, you'd write true and you move on. But if you're going too quick, I'm going to trick you, right? Because I say fallacies are the wrong way to think. We should not study them so that we can commit them later. Well, that part is false. And when I'm asking you true, false, I mean, what is the entire sentence? Is the entire sentence true or the entire sentence false? Okay, lots of questions regarding appeal to fear. If you see any fallacy that is not listed on the handout that I've given to you, like appeal to vanity, just disregard it. It's probably not going to be tested, or if it is, it's going to be something that would have to be false because you wouldn't have the information. Same would go for appeal to ignorance. Don't worry about it. We're not going to test you on it. Okay, so multi-states. We've already done some of these in class as a group. You'll notice here that the format is different than a true-false. So the first thing I do is I would check to make sure I know what the call of the question is. Is the question asking me for the best answer or the worst? Then read the call and work your way from the bottom up. Okay, so that's the general form we're going to do for questions. I'm going to try not to cover those that we've already covered in class, but I want to add something to the questions that we do cover to give you a little bit more support for the final. So let's do, you know what, before I jump into these, give me just a tick. Hold on. Okay, you guys, sorry about the delay there. I just wanted to make sure that the questions that I'm covering on this one are proofed. And so if I run across an error in one of the questions, I'll correct it right away as we go. So number 6, let's start on this. Which of the following is the best example of the appeal to force fallacy? So remember, sometimes I'm going to say appeal to the force, and that's an attempt, an appeal to the force fallacy would be fake. But an appeal to force fallacy is real. So let's go ahead and say, let's read this question. Remember, first thing we want to do, look for the call. Find out what the question is asking you. Which of the following is the best example of the appeal to force fallacy? So we start at the beginning, or excuse me, start at the end. If you do not sign this paper, you will not sign this paper. Well, that's not an appeal to force. It's just a tautology. It's just a true statement. It's saying if A, then A. It doesn't help us at all. D, this is the happy house. We're happy here in the happy house. Oh, it's such fun. Little reference to Susie and the Banshees for those of you who care, which would be no one. C, the spider sense only comes along after several issues. Well, this is a reference to the development of Spider-Man and Peter Parker. It has nothing to do with appeal to force fallacy. It's a distractor. Letter B, I find your lack of faith disturbing. So this looks like it's going to be a fake, right? This looks like it's going to be a silly question. But I trick you. At the last moment I say, in other words, accept my position or I will choke you out. Dun, 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 dun. There's your appeal to force fallacy. You have someone trying to force a reader or someone they're talking to accept a conclusion on the basis of psychological reasons, right? That they're going to be harmed, not that there are independent reasons for doing that. So the answer there is probably going to be B, but let's not wipe away A first. Let's finish strong, right? My best. We'll finish with the best. If I don't fall asleep first. Use the force, Luke. Is that an appeal to force fallacy? No, that's just Star Wars. So don't worry about that. Okay, let's move to number 6. Identify the best label for the following fallacy. Okay, so we want to identify this fallacy. So we have to figure out which one we think it is before we look at the options, right? Say the Star Wars Rebels is the best show on television, or I will drop you off this balcony. Okay, so this is the one that I, in fact, did not. This is the one that I wanted to correct, so let's correct it immediately. Let's call this appeal to force, and actually this helps us. You see right here where I have appeal to force and appeal to the force. Now, when we covered this in class, I recall that I hadn't put E up there yet. So now that this has been remedied, you can see that ultimately, your two options are probably going to be C and E. But remember, before you got there, you asked yourself what the fallacy was, and you probably said appeal to force. That's what I did. And so that would be answer E. If you're skimming and you're going quick, particularly if you're going from the top down, you might be inclined to say, oh, there's force right there. Boom, I've got it. That's a trick, right? I'm trying to weed out the people who don't deserve the extra points. So don't let that be you. Okay. 7 is just asking you the definition of a fallacy. So you should be comfortable with that question. Let's see. Okay, we'll cover Euphemism number 8, and then we'll skim down a few more. Which of the following is the best example of a Euphemism? Remember, that's when you take something that's neutral or pleasant and you use words to make it sound negative or devalue it or debase it in some way. Which of the following is the best example of a Euphemism in an argument? Well, immediately, if we start with the bottom E, as I recommend, we'll see that E is just false, right? Death is not an event in life. We do not live to experience death. This is simply a reference to a German philosopher. It's taken out of something called the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. Don't worry, you guys have never seen it, but it's just a distractor, right? It's obviously way out there. It's talking about death, and it's clearly off topic. D, a flaw in reasoning. Well, a euphemism is probably a flaw in reasoning. That's right. Generally speaking, that's true, but that's not enough. Maybe if the other examples are very poor, maybe D will be our answer, but we can't count on that. C, we don't use the term termination, we use abortion. So here we're taking termination, which is a medical term, a term of medical practice, and we're going to use the term abortion, which tends to carry more political connotations. So this would be taking something neutral and making it worse. That's exactly, that's exactly what a euphemism is. So this might be good, but let's just finish strong just in case there's something even better. B, we don't want to use the term abortion, we use termination. Okay, that's the opposite, right? That would be euphemism, so no. And A, if you don't sign this paper giving me royalties, I will drop you off this balcony vanilla ice. Nope, that's not a euphemism. That's a prior question, so we're going to go ahead and hit C. All right, let's skip forward a few here. We've got a couple of typos here in this SpongeBob question. We did this clean and wash stuff in class. I did need to clarify, though, that there was an error here in the proper answer. So this one, unfortunately, due to my typo, is probably going to be one of the easiest problems. So I've taken one of the hardest questions and I've made it easier through my carelessness and negligence. So it's good for you, it's bad for the instructor. I'll just run through the question so you see what the correction is and you'll understand. Number 18, immediately after Clean storms off the stage in a national debate, Wash turns to the camera, motioning for the camera to zoom in on his face, right, like this. Bring it like this, like he's just nodding. If Wash wants to commit the ad hominem circumstantial fallacy, which of the following statements should he make? Before you start running through those, make sure you recall in your mind what is ad hominem circumstantial, and what it is it is an attack on what someone says based upon the context or the circumstances surrounding the person. So usually it's an affiliation that the person has, and they say, well, because so-and-so is this, then what they say must be false. The error here is that that person's membership or whatever feature you're pointing to that's bad doesn't make the assertion that the person is making true or false. All that association does is perhaps indicate that you'll be biased, but that doesn't preclude your statement from still being true and correct. So, so let's start at E. I would feel sorry for my opponent if he wasn't a soul-eating robot. Well, that's an ad hominem abusive. Remember, that's a personal insult, so that's not it. Here's another one with Wash just saying Clean doesn't have the sense that God gave a post. Another personal attack. C. Well, folks, what Wash has just said is a lie because Clean is a card-carrying member of the NRA. That's the right answer, but remember, don't just stop. Keep going to make sure that your answer is correct. So, well, folks, I have no idea, but he just committed the red herring fallacy. That statement references another fallacy, but it is not itself a commission of the ad hominem circumstantial fallacy. And this business here about the silly tirade and the piece of toilet paper stuck to the bottom of the shoe, again, it's not an ad hominem circumstantial fallacy, so we don't care about it. So the proper answer here is C. And I regret to tell you guys, I don't remember who corrected that. But I will by the end of this study video. So I'm Grateful. Thank you for that correction. Let's do, which of the following is the best example of the appeal to tradition? So we're looking at the appeal to tradition fallacy, and we want the best example. Okay, let's start at the bottom. E. This form of meditation has been practiced by ancient Nasaramean sorcerers who held wisdom of the ages. We should do it too. That one's pretty good. Let's keep it for now, and let's keep looking. I think E is actually probably going to be our answer, but we'll just keep checking, right? D, there are two kinds of people in the world, people who divide the world into two kinds of people and people who don't. Ha ha, that's not it. Jack London's house party, nope, that's not it. B looks quite similar to E, so it might be the answer. Let's see. Which of the following best example of appeal to tradition? This form of meditation has been practiced by ancient Nasaramean sorcerers who held wisdom of the ages, so we should by no means use it when we're playing Xbox. So between B and E, E looks a little bit better. And let's finish with A. Really depends on my mood. Sometimes I invoke the Star Wars fallacy, sometimes I don't. That's not correct. So your correct answer is going to be E on this one. Okay, let's just take a little pause. Okay, you guys, sorry about that little break. Let's take a peek here. Let's leave 25. It looks so funny and silly. I just want to save that for in class. Let's try number 26. Here we are. Which of the following is the best example of the appeal to authority? And this should say fallacy, not example. All right, which is the following example of appeal to authority? So remember, in your head, you're already thinking, okay, there are two kinds of appeal to authority. One where someone says, because authority figure says this, it must be true. And remember, that can't work because an authority on something, an expert on a subject who makes a claim about that subject may make it more likely that their claim is true, but it doesn't guarantee that the claim is true. So that's the first one. And then the second one is when someone has a degree or a great deal of experience, but that degree or experience or knowledge doesn't have anything to do with the claim that that person is making. So keep those two in mind, and let's start at the bottom and see what we have. Appeal to authority. Okay, having a tradition is a tradition, so we should have one. Nope. D, I'm not sure about the upcoming Han Solo movie. Me and you both. C, it was a golden pin with 3 circles, right? That's a reference to a class story. B, Stanton Friedman believes in UFOs, so they must be real. Now this is good, but you guys don't know who Stanton Friedman is. So that's tough, right? It's tough. I haven't given you enough information yet to conclusively pick B. So B is an answer, but A may be superior. We don't know. We have to review A first. Professor Vinton wrote one heck of an exam here. This test should come with a hand stamp because it's just like a party in here. Well, that may be true, right, for number 26, but the correct answer is going to be B. Remember, I'm asking for the best example. B could be improved a little bit, but it's fine, right? It's the best out of the options that we've been given. Okay. Here we go, number 30. What is the best example of the ultra-veratio fallacy? E, there is no such fallacy, right? D talks about Dyatlov Pass. C is a silly quote from Workaholics. B is just silliness. The anti-disestablishmentarianism of precognitive neural dispositions in chicken embryos. It's just silliness. And A, appealing to an ultimate form of authority only to find similar subjectivist problems remain. None of those help you. The answer is E. There is no such fallacy. Okay, so the section concerning categorical logic will pop up probably on Saturday. Thanks a lot, you guys.